You won't be replaced by AI, but you will be replaced by somebody that knows AI. Nowadays, I call it DIY AI, do-it-yourself AI. You pay maybe $20 for a subscription on OpenAI ChatGPT. With that, and with the right mindset, skill set, the right way of prompting, kind of like your idea about how do I build a product, you can actually already start using that in tomorrow's workforce.
I'll be honest with you, when you mentioned AI-generated content, let it be an interview, a video, or a podcast, whatever, I mean, it doesn't frighten me anymore.
Good. ChatGPT, or for that matter, most other large language models, it's a little bit like an employee who is kind of like lazy, likes to take shortcuts, and never wants to say no. In the future, companies will all use AI. So it's AI to AI. What probably makes a difference when you really think about this is the human element. AI cannot really answer my emotions in that way. There's curiosity in two directions. Knowing something about a lot of things and knowing a lot about something. Your career is kind of like largely your responsibility. The future of the workforce will be augmented by technology.
Welcome to the city built on motion. In Dubai and Abu Dhabi, roles are evolving very fast. Organizations are changing very fast. And AI plus the professional communities are shaping how careers change. Today, my guest on the Vision Voices podcast is David Van Lochem. He is a former HR executive and from a big tech company. And he's also a powerful public voice behind Augmented workforce. Together, we're going to work out some practical ways in how to pivot now. David, hi, and thank you very much for coming again to my podcast after 4 years now?
Probably, yeah. I was even, I think, pre-COVID, if I'm not mistaken. It was a long time ago, and I'm really happy to be back.
I commented on one of your posts on LinkedIn the other day. You've been part of the event at one of the universities, probably Wellington University?
Amity University.
Amity University,
precise, yeah.
Right. And at that event, you were discussing AI curriculum.
Yes, actually a very important topic. So I'm doing different advisory roles for the Amity University, and they asked me to contribute together with some other kind of like industry experts about the new Master of Science curriculum that they want to launch for artificial intelligence. One of the big debate points was actually, should somebody be very technical and more focused on developing AI, or is the AI already developing so much you need somebody more from a managerial implementation transformational perspective with, of course, technical insights? And it's a very important discussion because a few years ago we were all talking about coders, and the reality is that now with generative AI can do a lot of coding. I don't say there are no coding jobs anymore, but the focus is no longer on coding. The same what you see more or less, for example, with data science. Data science, now you have generative AI programs like, for example, Julius, that can start doing predictive analytics. So the world is very rapidly changing. So the discussion started with what kind of roles should these people get after they finish their Masters of Science. And that was actually not an easy one because, first of all, you hardly know what in 4 years, let's say 4 years from now, what roles will be out there.
Absolutely.
How would the technology have evolved? And what kind of skills and knowledge is needed? Knowledge is more and more easily available. I mean, with Google, when we had the internet, already knowledge became far more democratized. You used to need to have an encyclopedia at home to look up something. Google, you can Google anything. Now with generative AI, you can ask your GPT anything what you would like to know. So knowledge is already there. So what kind of backgrounds do these students need to have in order to kind of like be successful? And I must say we had a very difficult discussion with different views on what needs to be there. Do people still need to learn machine learning? Do they still need to know deep learning? Do they still need to have coding experience? Statistics, yes, I would say so. But yes, it gives away how quickly the world is changing. And the conclusion was probably more that we are looking for people who are curious, adaptable, and have great learning skills. Of course, that is not enough for a curriculum. So they still need to know things like they need to learn about the basics of AI, statistics, and a bit of mathematics and where data is coming from. But yeah, that's the reality. And to predict which rules they're going to get is very tough because we don't know how the world will look like in 4 years from now.
I absolutely get it that the conversation must have been really tough, because I think most of the conversations about AI nowadays are coming up to the point that you can't claim that you know everything, right?
No.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, kind of like in one sentence, we're looking for business leaders with a good understanding of AI and with good transformational skills. I think that's the nutshell what we're looking to build in that sense.
And that makes a lot of sense to me. The transformational skills, that is something that I picked up from what you said. So what do we consider to be a transformational skills? Not only in leaders, but also in, mid-level professionals, in those who start their probably career journey.
Okay. When you talk about transformational skills, especially there's a big word, digital transformation. One of the things I always say is like digital transformation is like any other transformation in essence. If you look at, if you have to split it, there's a part about technology, there's a big part around data, but the biggest part is people and processes.
I want to jump into the area of your expertise, and that is augmented workforce.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what is augmented workforce and how it is being applied here in Dubai?
Right. So let me go back a little bit, like why did I call my business augmented workforce? Because that came from a belief that the future of the workforce will be augmented by technology. The business has evolved from more like a robotic process automation provider to what I call people, data, and technology. So we're all about about people, the people element. Of course, without people, there are still most organizations don't exist. But also, of course, like how does that work with data, being data-driven, and technology? In reality, I represent different technology companies. We build technology for people. And I also do a lot of workshops and training and keynotes around technology. And one of the key elements one of the terms that we're using is applied AI. What do I mean? Like a lot of people talk about what is the future? How does the world look like? Most of the time, I've got a very simple answer nowadays, and that's I don't know, because most people don't know. It's very hard to predict. We all thought we had driverless cars by now. We have autopilots, but we're still using the steering wheel. But other technologies like the rise of large language models like ChatGPT, we hadn't really foreseen that much. It was already there, but we hadn't foreseen. So predicting the future is very difficult. But what is important is that people start adopting technology, AI, for the benefits of themselves and the organization. And there's a lot of technology opposite to when we first spoke on this podcast. Is like a lot of technology was complicated, hard to acquire, expensive, etc. Nowadays, I call it DIY AI, do-it-yourself AI. You pay maybe $20 for a subscription on OpenAI, ChatGPT. With that, and with the right mindset, skill set, the right way of prompting, kind of like your idea about how do I build a product, you can actually already start using that in tomorrow's workforce, beyond writing a job description or beyond writing an email for you. There's far more you can do. So I think with that, like augmented workforce nowadays is very much igniting people to start applying and using AI for their benefit and the organizational benefit.
Oh, so it's adopting technology for different areas and different functions within organization.
Correct.
Right? So it's not a specific technology, it's not a specific solution, it's the philosophy, it's the concept, right? It's how a function, let's say a marketing function, a human resource function, a financial function, like a role, let's say, and how do they adopt a technology in their particular sort of unit or a function within the organization? Is that how you take augmented workforce?
That's how I take augmented workforce. There might be examples that you might not like and think about. It's like there are AI-based solutions that can create podcasts, for example.
I know,
Based on a prompt, based on a lot of things. Doesn't mean that podcasts like this go away, because there is something to say about people. But it's like, if you don't have the means to create a live podcast, or if you want to have a podcast in multiple languages with a consistent messaging, this technology exists, and that's almost, I gave you your kind of
area,
like but like almost every area you will find these kind of like technologies. And of course you can say, listen, this is my bread and butter, I kind of like push it away. But when you think about that, it's like nobody knows exactly what the future is going to be like. This question about, is AI going to take away our jobs, is one of the, I don't like that
overhyped claim. I call it the most overhyped AI claim is AI is going to take all of our jobs. It's going to take some of our jobs for sure.
Yes. I mean, the reality is, like, again, I don't know. There were people that were saying, like,
true.
You won't be replaced by AI, but you will be replaced by somebody that knows AI. I think if you really look at it very objectively, there are three options that you have. One is you fight against it. So you do whatever you do to prove that AI doesn't do it well. The second option is that you ignore it. You just pretend like nothing is happening. Mm-hmm. And the third option is you embrace it and you do something with it. I mean, for me, it's very simple. Like, clearly, the third option has most chances of success,
for sure,
than the other ones.
And I'll be honest with you, when you mentioned AI-generated content, let it be an interview, a video, or a podcast, whatever, I mean, it doesn't frighten me anymore.
Good.
Good.
I didn't see you getting frightened. You got excited. So
because I think if this is the way to go, first of all, it might actually at some point of time make my work in some areas easier. And we have to admit, AI is smarter than a human. I mean, you don't do search yourself nowadays, right? You search and you evaluate the outputs.
If you look at ChatGPT, I always say ChatGPT, or for that matter, most other large language models, it's a little bit like an employee who is kind of like lazy, likes to take shortcuts, and never wants to say no. So that in mind, if you want to get the right answer, so it means like in your prompt, you're kind of like almost you have to tell the model it's okay to say no if you don't know it. Mm-hmm. So, and I want you to answer when you're 95%, 98% sure. That's kind of like reducing the risks of hallucinations and stuff like that. The other thing is, like, now it's better, but initially people will find out, like, they were prompting and reprompting and certain information was disappearing or no longer brought in, laziness, right? So you have to make sure you're very explicit with that model to make sure you really get what you want. The third one is, and that comes back to your point, Google. Now you can find the sources, but what I found out is that the credibility of sources is not something that the model is already very good at. What I mean is, like, sometimes it takes the information from a solution seller as a fact.
Yeah.
Well, I will prefer the information, for example, from a government or
You're
from
right.
an official body. So there's still some work to be done, and this is the human oversight. And it's a nice bridge, actually. The human oversight of the model makes it better. So if you go back and you click the likes and you say, that one is actually, it's in their favor or it's in their benefit if they say something like this. If they overestimate, overselling,
over-flattering, things like that, yes.
So if you go over that, then probably you get to the best possible answer. If you just take it like it is, like your ChatGPT answer, you might get it from not very credible sources, and you might present something that is actually not really true.
I think what you're talking about here is about the the ability to evaluate the output that AI is able to provide you, right? And that is primarily, defines the human who works with the AI, whether it is a junior person, less experienced, or probably more experienced with a lot more critical thinking, a person who is able to evaluate the output that we receive from, an AI agent, a system, whatever, and able to tweak it, whether to use it or whether to reject it. But what you also mentioned, an interesting thing, is how you work with the AI. So this is the new skill. You need to be able, because I was trying to actually dig into that with somebody else. I was talking about AI. I'm like, what do you mean by, you don't have to be technical, but you need to know AI. You need to know how to work with the AI. And I think you just nailed it. It's the way, the way you interact with it, right?
Yeah.
So you accept the fact that it can be 65% right only, and then you allow yourself to sort of really make an extra inquiry to be able to get what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
And that's also when, if you look at like the other term that is coming up massively now is of course agentic AI. Mm-hmm. And if you kind of like have to summarize agentic AI, it's kind of like what was already kind of like more or less the idea with co-pilots is that AI does things for you without you prompting. It's kind of like does it by itself. Reality is, like, even if you look at companies like insurance companies, banks, etc., they use a massive amount of AI nowadays in their operations. But the reality is that most of it is still supervised, human supervised. So let's say you work in an insurance company. The initial claims can be judged by AI. They can be classified. They can be kind of like a lot of the claim processing can be done by AI. But still, there's an element of human supervision that is important. So that's one thing, and I think that's also when people are really worried about a job. For the time being, there is still a level of supervision required. The second part is if we stick to the insurance company or for that matter, like if you call, let's say if you're upset about something in your insurance, for example, a claim has been rejected, well, you absolutely were entitled to that claim. There is a factual answer to that, like, for example, it was not in the small print or whatever the reason was. That can be answered by AI. But when you call, I don't know, my wife often says, like, you're very upset sometimes when I call an insurance company. There's an emotional element to it.
Yeah.
And AI cannot really answer my emotions in that way. I want somebody to acknowledge.
That's right.
What what I feel like is wrong or whatever. Next to then there is a factual thing, and I feel like these are the kind of like directions that jobs are going. There was somebody that recently said in a conference. She said, like, in the future, companies will all use AI. So it's AI to AI. What probably makes a difference when you really think about it is the human element to that one. And I think that in that sense, coming back to your question about augmented workforce, I still believe in an augmented workforce. Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be integrated into what actually humans do. So I think the point being is that you cannot avoid. I mean, the companies who would avoid that human element are probably going to lag behind on the experience side of things. Absolutely. In their products or with their client base, and eventually probably lose. Hopefully, they will lose to those who are not avoiding that human element. I mean, provided that human element is really a human one, right? Somebody who's trained to acknowledge somebody else's emotions, and then there comes the empathy conversation, right?
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I agree on that. There was another thing that I wanted to say is, like, when you say experience, it's another really big benefit of, can be another big benefit of AI. The reason why I'm saying that is, like, I agree there is nothing like, for example, when you have music or you have a live conversation like we are having and people see that recorded, there is nothing like that really takes it away. But when many years ago I spoke about the concept of robo-bosses, for example. Mm-hmm. A robo-boss is like AI is your boss. Like, when you look at things like performance management, reality is that a lot of managers don't give frequent feedback and they have problems explaining what the feedback actually is to an employee. So if you have AI that is giving you more frequent feedback, so that you can take action when it's needed, and is also more explicit in what actually is required, that's probably better than the human part of it. But then when you think about robo-bosses, then I always give the example, like what if you, for example, you lose somebody who's dear to you, and you call your robo-boss and AI says, I'm so sorry for your loss. That's different than your real boss telling you, like, I'm really sorry for your loss and what you're going through. So not every moment, not every kind of like, not every process, not every moment needs to have that human touch anymore. And sometimes the technology is probably better and faster and more efficient. But there are certain areas, certain moments in life that are defining and more important to you, where that human touch is really adding to the experience to a level that the technology cannot do that.
I get it now. When you elaborated and you gave more specific examples, now I understand your concept of augmented workforce and what you mean by that. There are really, really small, tiny shades of the things that you cannot replicate with the technology, right? And
Correct.
One and the same thing done by a human and done by a robot can work for one situation but might not at all work for another situation.
Correct.
So, and it's amazing. I mean, it's just, I like how deep the whole concept is and the mission behind the augmented workforce. I think it's just really, really powerful.
One of the things that were used, and IBM is not unique, other companies are using that well, was what they called the T model. Mm-hmm. The T model basically stands, like the horizontal layer stands for the breadth of your knowledge, like how much do you know, the generalist part, and then your vertical is your specialism. And the assumption was always, like, as a consultant or in general as somebody working in technology, you need to have somewhere where you go deep, but you also need to know a lot. That's the curiosity part as well. So there's curiosity in two directions. Knowing a lot about, knowing a little, maybe not a little, but knowing something about a lot of things and knowing a lot about something. I think that concept is still important. So when you want to get hired, it's good to have the kind of like a more generic view. I think if you only specialize in one industry and you only know that industry for 20 years, it's very hard to move to something else. Even though you might have the skills, it's hard to make that an employer believe. But at the same time, if you're purely a generalist and you have no depth on a particular topic, it's very hard. And I think the good thing about now the depth is obtaining knowledge it's so democratized. Like you can learn from anywhere and anything. Yeah. And actually, when you look at it, the way I learn about AI is not by going to a course necessarily, or I really learn it from reading articles on LinkedIn, seeing comments of people trying software, hearing things like when you have a community, you hear from your peers things or from people in other parts. That's how you learn. From coffees that I do with people, that's where I get the insights. The only thing I would say that I would really recommend, and that's my view, is the world is moving so fast. So your horizontal is fine, your generalist part is fine. You can keep up. The vertical one, what is relevant today might be less relevant tomorrow. Yeah. So I recommend people to think about at least a second vertical pillar. So the T with the double vertical, because you don't know. You were deep in coding. Now there's a lot that can be done with coding. You were deep in data science. Data science is also kind of like, so it's very hard to predict. So it's a better bet to have at least two specialisms. But I still believe you need to have that level of specialism somewhere.
To be able to be more sort of sellable resource or hireable resource, let's put it this way. But we're living in a very competitive world, regardless whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're in media, in podcasting, or whether you're in a corporate environment, to be able to get what you want, you need to understand who your competitors are. And what do you need as a professional to be competitive, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I was trying to dig a little bit deeper into, because I was always in a position that getting across several, say, functions and topics and expertise makes you a not hireable resource, especially for hubs like Dubai. So you need to be like really clear for recruiters as a professional. So what are your skills? What are your experiences? What is your network to be able to be hired fast or something like that? I mean, I would like to hear from you. Has this changed? Is it evolving? Is cross-functional experience and the fact that the curiosity plays such a big role in how people learn things? Does it make a difference? Does it change anything in the hiring process from what you hear? Not necessarily. You might have a point of view, but not necessarily know exactly, right?
Okay. Yeah, sure. I think what has changed nowadays is like, so there are two things. One is like your profile and your brand. I think your brand has become more and more important. So that vertical is your edge, and your edge is important, but also the way you communicate that edge and how people know about that you have that edge. So let's put it this way: like if you take my own edge, where really deep is probably the AI and HR part. Mm-hmm. I know more about AI, of course, in general, but that's a kind of like my edge. And I would say there are only a few people that really have that level of depth where I feel like they are kind of like they have the same passion and the same depth as I have. So that is my edge, but having my edge is not enough. Mm-hmm. So because for every job that is advertised, if I would be looking for a job, like every job that is advertised, when I got here in Dubai 16 years ago, maybe 250 candidates that moved to 500, 1,000, 1,500 I hear from others, 2,000 sometimes. Mm-hmm. So how do you, on LinkedIn, advertise? How do you kind of like make a difference on this 2,000? Not. And the interesting part is also when you look at the UAE, Dubai in particular, but I would say the UAE, it used to be a location where people felt there was hardship maybe, or you have to leave certain things, etc. So it was a kind of like, why are you going to the UAE? And now everybody wants to go to the UAE. It's a lifestyle destination. So let alone, like you have already a lot of people here that are looking for jobs in the country. And then you have a lot of people outside of the country that want to find a job here. So you need to do something to make a difference. How do you find a job? And I never realized it until I kind of like started having discussions also with a lot of other people looking for jobs, etc. People come back to me and they say, one of the things that is really different compared to the country that I'm from is the importance of network, or kind of like, and network and personal brand kind of like go a little bit hand in hand. Yeah. But that's kind of like being out there, marketing, almost like marketing yourself, or at least your skill set is crucial, I would say, to land something proper. But also opportunity is in every corner. Sometimes you still find your job maybe because you are paying padel with someone, or you're kind of like your child goes to school with someone. See opportunities in everything.
I frankly think in Dubai, I'm actually I have to admit, probably this way of building your connections plays a much more significant role than more official sources of looking for the job. And I'm not sure if it's good or bad, because some people are good at, building connections through informal activities like, and we have so many here in Dubai. And some people are much better in their, formal processes, right? And I'm not sure. So what's your point of view? So, and if we also plug into this whole technology disruption into the hiring process, so probably how would you evaluate, or do you have to just admit and accept the fact that this is how it works in Dubai, and what's your perspective on that? And how do people should go around that? Do they have to try and, try and build those connections through different communities, or do they have to keep on upskilling themselves in the AI and trying to crack the algorithms, you know?
Okay. One doesn't necessarily exclude the other. So starting with your last point, building communities, I have, I think, 34,000 connections on LinkedIn, but I always say my offline connections are more important than my online connections. So I still believe in the human aspect there. There are certain kind of like steps that you need to take to build communities. The way I explain it is you start by giving. You start by giving your time, giving your advice, giving opportunities to others.
Yeah.
It always starts with giving. Then the second step is asking. Some people are too shy to ask.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with asking. Of course, the way you ask is important, and the timing is important. There are so many things. And then the third one is connect. Try connect in many different ways. Connect your network with the connection of others. So sometimes that's simple. You host just maybe a party at your place, and you invite some other people and say, bring your friends. Your friends are my friends. It can be as simple as that. Sometimes it's more like you formally connect your networks, or you kind of like you share things. But that's I would say is a very good way of kind of like spreading that out, because like you rightly said, the formal channels, I don't say they're no longer relevant, but it's very hard to find opportunities there.
Do you see AI can be helpful to sort of fix those processes in some future perspective, or do you think the physical connection is still going to play a much bigger role for our region?
Okay. One doesn't exclude the other. So if you look at, twice a year I do a survey amongst HR professionals about how they are using AI and what are they using it for. The biggest one that they're using it for, almost everyone, is writing job descriptions. Nobody likes to write job descriptions, so AI can do that perfectly. But if you look at the areas where AI is really applied in companies, it's in talent acquisition, recruitment.
Yeah.
And for me, I think it's a good thing, because it creates fairness. I mean, some people are concerned about bias, and of course there can be bias in the data, and then the bias can kind of like go through basically the whole selection process. But in principle, think about it. If you have 2,000 CVs, if a human being, a recruiter, is going through it, first of all, it's impossible.
Absolutely.
Secondly, even if you could, you would somehow dedicate the time. By the time you reach number 80, you're already looking differently at it than at number 1. So there's nothing fair and unbiased there. So yes, a lot of companies are using AI to go through CVs. I wouldn't say the majority at the moment, but yes. And then the other thing what you see where technology is playing a role in talent acquisition is in optimizing CVs for what they call talent ATS, applicant tracking systems. LinkedIn, of course, there are algorithms that look at certain keywords, certain combinations. So we have software to optimize it, and we have software to screen it. And the funniest one that I got is like nowadays you also have software that can, when you do an interview, of course, on one side you have robotic interviewing. On the employer side, you have you can use AI to structure your interviews, to answer to kind of like prompt the questions for you and analyze the answers. But now there's also software for the for whoever the candidates to have software live, especially when you do it on Teams. You can have it live next to your Teams, and that gives the answers. And so yeah, you even see it used in that way. And even to the extent there was a CHRO, she said like, I've been interviewing senior candidates from our organization, and I just noticed that one of them was using this software next to the screen to prompt the answers. What do I do about it? I said, well, you should tell your candidates up front that if they start using AI, this interview or this meeting is one of the few opportunities you have to connect human to human. So don't spoil it.
Yeah. So how many, by the way, solution providers here in the market in human resource space? You've just mentioned the software solutions that actually help to optimize this, selecting and interviewing processes. So is it? I mean, I've been somehow historically more into fintech space, but I've never come across human resource solution providers, and whether this is a big thing here in the market in the UAE, and does it really help? So what's your...
Fair enough. There are actually probably as much HR solution providers as there are fintech companies.
Really?
And there are a lot. So I guess even more, because like fintech, you have all kind of like legislation you need to obey with, and it's hard to assess, but like there are probably about 30,000 HR related solutions, AI HR related solutions out
That's
there.
kind of insane, isn't it?
It is insane.
Yeah.
Even for me, it's like every time, like I think I have a bit of an understanding of the market, and every time somebody comes to me with a name, haven't you heard of that one? I said, no, but like it's impossible to hear of all of them. So, for me, it's like when you look at all these solutions, what I recommend for people to make a choice out of that is, first of all, of course, look at your workflow. Do I really need the solution or not? Can I fix the workflow? What is the business case? So start with the business case. But then when you have a business case for something to improve, then look at the quality. So is it a solution that is kind of like has really been tested? It really does what it says it does, etc. Look at the experience, the user experience. Sometimes it works, but then we know, like if we have a new app and you cannot work with the app within 20 seconds or probably 12 seconds, you probably already kind of like don't look at the app anymore. So is the user experience good? And the third one is always like, it's a little bit like investing on the stock market. Like it's you have to do a bit of due diligence. Is this company, who are behind the company? Mm-hmm. Is there funding behind the company? Do I believe that this company is going to be around there for 5 or 10 years from now? Because although the world is moving very fast, you still want to bet on a company that at least the technology that you can use for a few years, especially in a corporate environment.
I wanted to raise this sort of broader conversation about overall career in Dubai. What's your perspective on that? So how do we approach life and career in Dubai?
You mean, and when you say we, is the employer side of the individual?
Yes, yeah. On individual level, on, let's say, organizational level, on thought leaders levels, like what would be your point of view, your vision around that, right? Because so you know what recruiters are talking. So you know the big techs, you know the solution providers, you know the situation in the hiring market, you know the startups, you know their journeys of alternative to organizational. How do we treat career? Let's put it this way. How do we treat career in general, right?
Yeah. I think one of the when I got here, and I think you and I are probably kind of like similar time in Dubai, UAE.
Long time,
yeah. When I got here, like it was still very much like the companies were looking at bringing in talent from other parts of the world, and then there was a job to do. I thought I would be here for a year and a half, and 16 years later, I'm still here.
Yeah.
That's not only because of me. That's also because employers have kind of like most of them have picked up. That instead of buying talent, there is also an option of developing talent. And I must say that maybe some smaller companies, they don't really have picked it up, but all the larger players are there. And especially the global companies, they definitely understand the perspective of building talent, developing talent, building their own workforce. The problem is a little bit that if you look at the global players, initially, there was a lot of kind of like, do you call it the growth market, the opportunities? There was a lot of people were brought in the headquarter roles, etc. UAE is not a cheap place to be.
Not at all.
And you see that opportunities with global players are they haven't really increased, to be honest. I think it's probably the other way around.
It's the other way around,
They,
yes.
especially the headquarter roles, like they kind of like disappeared. If I look at some of one of my previous employers, and if I look at similar companies like that, most of them have decreased headcount here, especially in the UAE. Some of it moved, of course, to Saudi Arabia, where there was a big market, but still. So you also have to think then in terms of your career. What am I going to do next? It's a reality that that this has happened, and that if you only look towards the big tech or the big companies in general, you probably limit your own opportunities. So it's important to look at smaller size businesses, mid-sized businesses. There are some great unicorns here, like that come up, like Huda Beauty in the beauty space. We have Tabi. We have so many. Dubizzle, Kareem was born here. Like there are many great opportunities of companies that are upcoming and rising. There are some family-owned businesses that are also still looking for talents with maybe global mindsets. So yeah, you need to change your mindset in terms of like where your career is heading.
We have to admit that probably 10, 15 years ago, there was no pool of, disruptive startups that grew up to 200, 100, 200 people, employees, right? There were no companies that are represented in the market now. And so this is one of the way to look at. So not only the global brands, which is probably, because 10, 15 years ago, that was the only successful scenario, right?
Yeah.
And that is kind of a stigma around, like, if a career in Dubai, it has to be in a global brand only, right? But things have changed, and I'm happy you're mentioning that. And apart from that, apart from the companies, let's say, so how can we define a career in Dubai nowadays? So what sort of scenarios it has developed, or how career scenarios have evolved, let's say, from only being hired as an in-house employee, so you can do so many more things, right? So I want you to elaborate on that, whether this can be considered as a career.
Okay. So for me, when we talk about talent development, it always has two sides. So I don't like people saying like my employer or I expect or etc. Your career is kind of like largely your responsibility.
Yeah.
So there are so many ways nowadays to uplift your career and to kind of like to learn new skills, new things, etc. It's not expensive anymore. Often it's for free. It's just besides your time that you need to invest, but that's what you need to invest. So I think you should really take your career in your own hands, and especially compared to, for example, the country that I'm from, the Netherlands, where employers are maybe a little bit more caring. Here it's more the mix, what I think is fair.
Yeah.
So yes, you can expect something from your employer, but it's you who needs to take that career in your own hands and show also that you can really make the difference. Go to your managers, have this great idea, and you can do and articulate it in the right way with the proper facts, etc. Of course, not everyone is open to it, and you might need to shift one or two times from employer to get to that point. But there are definitely companies that are welcoming you with new ideas, new things, and are willing to let you grow in that sense. The other thing I would say, it's not always in the same line up, right? You don't do project coordinator, project manager, project director, PMO, whatever. So think more in terms of building blocks. Like what are the experiences that you need to have, again, based on a team model, what are the experiences that I need to have to kind of like be employable?
So if you if we look at the new companies that not the new companies, companies that have become really great players in this market, from the hiring practices, are they adopting some global practices, or are they building their own authentic regional culture of how they hire and how they build their structures? So from your...
And you're mainly
knowledge.
talking about the new upcoming brands, companies.
The startups, let's say, somebody like you mentioned the Huda Beauty, you mentioned Tabe, we can mention Noon, we can mention, many brands that, came into this market in the recent years, yes, fairly recent years.
Yeah. I see, for example, in many companies that they try to be somehow to do something new, to be innovative. So we just mentioned Huda Beauty. They have, for example, something called self-care days.
Right.
It's a nice concept where really the idea is kind of like you once, I think approximately once a month, everybody is off and they're focused on their own well-being, their own development, etc. It's a nice way of kind of like putting benefits into place that it's a great marketing, and it also kind of like can really pay off. And there are other employers that are doing the same. So I think especially in the startup world, you see more innovative approaches in terms of employment, and also in terms of careers and et cetera.
And in terms of culture as well, something that they're offering to the new hires. So let's touch upon a little bit let's say the graduates, the people, let's say the young people who have grown in UAE, who have finished the universities and colleges here in the UAE and are also in need of, the good career start potentially here. So what is the situation with that particular category of people?
Okay, that's a big topic, by the way.
It is, same as a career. That's why I said we need to go serious.
Yeah, yes. That's a very big topic. I've got a very kind of like clear view on that. So if you look at, everybody needs to get an opportunity to start, and it looks like if I take my own situation, so my dad was 15, school dropout. He was able to start his own plumbing company. Not immediately, of course. He started as a kind of like helper with a plumber, and then he grew. So at least he wasn't idle. He was able to start his career. I personally wanted to earn money after I did high school, so I started working early, did my the degrees and everything else in the evening. But I was able to start basically when I was 18, what is kind of like not a very common age anymore for somebody to start working. Now you see bachelor's degree is not enough anymore. People do master's degrees. Also, that doesn't look like a guarantee for a job. So reality is like there is a bigger gap. And why that is because not just AI, automation in general, outsourcing, offshoring, has kind of like taken a lot of opportunities away for people to start their career, to learn what it means working for a company. How we can bridge that? Well, there's something maybe to do from a government perspective to say we want to stimulate people to kind of like combine studying more with working. Like that's a German model. 3 days a week maybe to work, 2 days a week you're still university, you're still under the scope of the university. You're probably still supported by your parents. So a bit of an inconvenient truth for parents that you might need to support your child a little bit longer than the age of 22 or 23. But that could be one. What you can do today is, of course, to kind of like find like starter roles, opportunities. Startups, they're often in need of people to support. They often cannot pay a full salary, but you can learn a lot of skills. So that's a good one. With that experience, you probably are able to work for a mid-sized company, even if it's not the best paid job, and then move into more like the corporate world if that's your ambition. But you need to be very proactive. Mm-hmm. You need to know how to use AI. And I think a lot of young people know how to use AI, but it's something people expect it. And you need to think about this team model. What I'm going to do, what I'm going to bring to this employer, what I'm going to give, not where I'm entitled to. Because yes, we know it's not fair enough. Mm-hmm. But what are you going to do about it?
I'm talking a lot to parents, right? And one of the things that I've been discussing lately is like we're setting up our daughter for college, but we're not sure if college is even the right way for the child nowadays, right? And I also come across an article, I think in the Times, that's the article that actually posted interviews with Harvard graduates, Harvard or Cambridge, I think, graduates. Mm-hmm. And It used to be a ticket to a successful career before, the education in a big university like that. But it's not anymore, right? And so I'm just interested to hear your perspective on that. Whether college is the right scenario for kids. I mean, it doesn't mean that we all have to deny the college at all. I mean, I am a big supporter of higher education. And I think it gives the framework to anybody who gets it, and it's a tough journey usually, but it's also a very valuable one, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's something at the moment, the rise of the blue-collar worker. What I mean is especially the rise of roles like plumbers and electricians.
Something that you can do with your hands,
yeah,
yes.
Because it's very hard to replace at the moment, still very hard to replace by AI or robotics in that sense, because it's small, it's specific, it requires certain skills. And I was in Europe as well as in North America, Canada, US. Everybody's talking about how plumbers and electricians, how they're making a lot of money and how there's so much in demand that they're hard to find. So I think that roles are changing. There's also something to say, roles that are more human-oriented are probably a good way of moving forward in the future for skills that are hard to replace. I still think we will need nurses, for example. There are certain things that can be done, but I think that, for example, being a nurse is still a profession that will stay. So yeah, we need to think about new directions, new ways for our children, like how to prepare them for the future, and that might not be the conventional way because, so many people have a bachelor's degree, so many people have a master's degree. I was the first one, I think, in my family to have a degree, but I have to check. But for sure, not many. And now, of course, it's standard almost. Yeah,
it's almost standard. Yes, and I think it's an interesting point that you've just mentioned. That I also, if I go back to getting my higher education at first, so I think. It became a trend that everybody should have had a higher education. But before that, for example, our parents were not required to do that, right?
No.
And now it's the other way around. It seems to be that we need to turn around to be able to fight, not to fight, but at least to live next to AI. We need to master the hands-on jobs, right? The jobs that involve, the hands-on skill, the physical skills, and the ability to live in the physical world. So I want to ask you a few quick round questions, like, for example, what is, and you just give me one line, what is the biggest, the overhyped AI claim in human resource? So what is the most? It's okay. We will edit it again. So I just think it's going to work for the reels so well. So, for example, the most overhyped AI claim when it comes to hiring career human resource, which means something like, for example, one chatbot can save the whole customer experience. Let me re-ask, and then you answer. Okay.
Sure.
And then. I'll ask you something else. Okay. So the second question would be, if a small to medium-sized business would like to make use of AI solutions tomorrow, next month, what should they start with? This is number 2. And number 3, I think the question would be, if a graduate, a mid-career, or let's say a senior professional would like to make use of, would like to master the AI skill to upskill themselves as professionals for the next hiring opportunity, what would you recommend to do? Okay, so these 3 questions. Okay.
All right.
So the first question is, what is the most overhyped AI claim that you've heard in the space of human resource?
Okay. Sorry, it's not one, but I will try to answer it very short. One thing is, I asked ChatGPT one time that question, like, what is the most common ground, and where is HR using AI for? It came up with payroll automation. Funny enough, like if you look at payroll automation, payroll is already largely automated, so there is actually not so much to do. It's actually one of the areas that are least. The other thing what people always want, and you really have to ask yourself, is it really what we need, is like the chatbot. If you have an organization with 60 people, do you really need a chatbot is it really beneficial to create your own chatbot for your policies or whatever you want to put into it?
Or something like our chatbot will solve all our customer service experiences.
Yeah. I mean, the old chatbots were terrible when they were rule-based. Like now, of course, when you combine it, when you build it on a language model, it's far more intelligent. But is it really look at the business case first, and then you will find the right use cases. I'm more a believer in things like performance management, learning, content creation. Like employee communication is really important. You can do that very well with the help of AI.
Got it. Question 2. So if a small to medium-sized business wanted to make use of AI in their hiring or, let's say, overall human resource space, what would you recommend them to do?
Okay. Small, medium size, so that's about, let's say, less than 100 or something like that,
yeah.
150. I would suggest to kind of like look for a ATS what has a bit of AI enabled, but if you really think about it, because if you have 100 people, you might hire, you have 12% attrition, so 12 positions a year that you have to fill, 1 position a month. Plus maybe a little bit like maybe you're doing 2 positions a month. Is it really worth to really build a whole ATS and everything else to do so? So you could look at a simple solution that will at least structure your hiring process in terms of candidates, because your CV selection is probably your biggest challenge. You still, even if you have 2 positions, you still get 2,500 applicants per month that you need to potentially answer. So a simple solution around that could work. Or you can even use, with a bit of prompt engineering, a bit of skills, you can actually do it yourself in ChatGPT, and that would work as well. There are certain tricks.
Got it. And the last question would be, let's take 3 categories. Let's take graduates, mid-career professionals, and senior professionals. If you were to tell them to start, making use of AI tomorrow, in terms of upskilling themselves or making them more attractive for the next hire, what would you recommend them to do? Let's start with graduates.
Okay. Apologies, I've just something crossed my mind about the previous question.
That's okay.
Yeah. So the other thing is, what always has been a problem is about when you do interviews.
Yeah.
Most people do interviews as they have a coffee with someone, very unstructured, very non-focused. So one of the things, even if you have a small organization, you can do is actually ask ChatGPT to help you structure your interview questions, help you summarize the results, etc. At least that makes it more structured and potentially a better quality of hiring.
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
So I didn't cross, but for a small business, that's not a massive investment with a very big impact, potentially big impact. In terms of like, how do you learn about AI and how do you prepare yourself for the future? It's hard to kind of like, when universities are having challenges keeping up with the developments in AI. So when you look at it, a lot of material is already kind of like something that was more relevant a few years ago than what it is today. A book, by the time it got published, and I tried it a few times, I tried to read a printed book. When I read it, I know like this is already changed. Has already kind of like is no longer there. I think the thing what I would do is what I suggest is like just like you follow influencers on social media on different things. There are also AI influencers. So follow them. They might not give you a full answer, but at least they spark you or they point you in the direction where you could potentially learn something. Second thing is doing. Like I always take out my mobile phone when I do a conversation. I said, how many people have had a training on how to use your mobile phone? Nobody, of course, but everybody knows how to use it. You learn it by doing.
Yeah,
and I think that's an important one.
Try it. Yeah,
try it out.
Practice. Yes,
practice.
Yeah.
And then you will get these skills. And yeah, sometimes when I do a training, I often work with avatars and like the likes of Synthesia, HeyGen. People are amazed by it, but it's actually so simple. we actually teach people how to use it. Of course, you're not perfect, but like how to use it in an hour and a half. That's it.
But do you find it more difficult for, let's say, senior professionals than, let's say, I mean, it's probably easier for graduates because they're open to many things, right?
Uh-huh.
It's more difficult for mid-career. And for the seniors, I think it's hard to actually, start learning something new, right? Do you find it? Or maybe it's I'm biased, probably.
We're all biased, but I think it's a matter of mindset.
Right.
I don't think it's like your brain cannot absorb new knowledge anymore. I know, like my mom knows how to use Instagram. Maybe not perfect, but she knows how to use Instagram and Facebook. I mean, and she is in her 80s, so yes, you can learn.
Yeah, you can probably go and learn something about AI. And the last point for today only, I hope it's not the last one. So if you were to give sort of either one action point or one wisdom to share with the audience now who has just watched this episode, be it about career, be it about tech, be it about anything else, what would it be? Just to make the day.
Okay. Always be critical and start kind of like thinking what is next or what is beyond. We haven't even touched on topics like, for example, AI adoption, what basically means like what can you do with AI that you couldn't do yesterday in terms of new business models, etc. Remain curious. Just keep moving forward. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been really, really insightful. And I think we just scratched the surface, honestly, in many things.
Thank you for this opportunity. And it was a great human moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for watching. And may your next role be both human and augmented, rooted in your strengths, and created for another decade in the Gulf.